Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
And this is So I'm Watching Riverdale, Season 7, Episode 9.
Chapter 126, Betty and Veronica Double Digest.
At the risk of sounding redundant, I am loving this season. This was almost like prestige TV.
It was good. It was very good.
This was just a character study.
Yeah.
Even Veronica's admittedly silly plot was compelling.
Okay. I say let's start Jughead, then Veronica, and end with Betty.
Okay.
Okay, so Jughead is in deep mourning about Brad Rayberry, and he is just literally sitting, taking up prime...
He has set up shop.
Prime real estate in a booth for 4 at Pops, just like shotgunning milkshakes. And just sitting there rereading the entire bibliography of Brad Rayberry.
The thousands of dollars he must owe Pop. Like the tens of thousands of dollars his tab must be.
Ridiculous. So that is basically the gist of that. Betty does come to him at one point, and he basically is just waxing...
Veronica too.
Oh, Veronica too, that's right. But he basically is just waxing poetic about how he is, like, grieving and, like, time is passing, and he, like, offers them both advice, which is, like, nice. And then at the end... Sheriff Keller comes in and is like, hey, we need your help to solve this suicide case, which
he came into that diner with purpose.
He did.
Like the
sirens were on the car outside too.
Like they drove there. He was like, I know where Jughead is.
Yeah.
And we desperately the police need his help.
And I just love that they were like, sirens on, we gotta get there now. All the way to Pops to find Jughead.
And that, like, final shot, I even said I was, like, considering it had very little to do with the episode, that might be the thumbnail. Because, like, the lights went down, and you just had that neon ice cream, and then just Jughead's face cloaked in red police siren light.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
It is the exact perfect amount of silly and melodrama.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That I want from the show. It was good.
So moving on to Veronica, she's been blackballed by her parents because they still really, really want to buy the Babylonium and tear it down and build a parking lot, which is still not a business. Not a business strategy. So you're just sinking money into something so it can be nothing. Unless it's going to be a paid parking lot, but that is still insane. Just operate this movie theater. It's insane.
you know the famous Joni Mitchell song.
Yeah.
Build a paid parking lot and you're in financial paradise.
Yeah. I guess.
That's what that song's about, right?
Yeah.
It's about building parking lots.
It's like a very actually anti-capitalist anthem. So,
but I think it's funny that one thing has remained constant, and it's that Veronica's parents hate her and want to see her ruined.
Suffer.
But I prefer this with them being an abstract concept.
Yeah.
I still maintain I want to see them in Lucy and Desi drag.
Okay.
But
when I was trying to find out about the thing we're not going to talk about in this episode, they have both confirmed they are going to be in at least one episode. But I don't know when, and I don't know how.
I'm playing a dangerous game.
You really are.
Wanting Mark Consuelos back.
Because, okay, that's the thing. So they have basically blackballed her to all the studios, so they got an overexposed copy of East of Eden, because she was trying to have a James Dean double feature, and the Riverdale kids went feral when they couldn't watch a movie.
Well, okay, but she did go very out of her way to interest that, because they didn't even want it. Yeah. Well, I guess they wanted to see the movie, but she really earned their interest and then gave them nothing.
Through no fault of her own, and she also none of them paid for their tickets.
But no one looked at that reel before everyone was sitting.
I think it was because it was a new release. I think it was freshly arrived.
Okay.
And so I'm willing to suspend my disbelief for that. So
Cheryl was a little bit back in villain mode, but it didn't.
This is nothing.
She didn't terrorize anybody, so it was fine.
But Fangs threw a popcorn container at Veronica's head. It hit her in the face. Thanks.
And Camilla was like, okay, now.
Please. It was very like that Liz Lemon where she's like, that someone throws the microwave at her and she's like, not cool. Nothing that could actually hurt me. And so basically they just they absolutely lost their collective marbles. And so she and Kevin and Clay all called around to all the studios. Kevin was just an adorable little secretary. And basically all of them were like, no, Riverdale can go screw. You don't get any movies. And like, we're only doing business with the Orpheum in Greendale and all kinds of stuff. So the last phone call she made finally was like, I can't get into business with you if I'm trying to get into business with your family, like your parents. And so that's when she was like, okay, I understand now. And it was Clay's idea to go to like a smaller, like an independent studio. Like a
B-movie.
Yeah. And so...
Which I want to note that this is how movies worked in the 50s.
Oh, sure.
Like, they would go on tour.
Yeah.
And, like, they would build buzz. And, like, a movie would be playing sometimes for, like, 2 years touring the country. And I think that that's interesting. And especially given the state of the industry today, I'm thinking that we're going to go back a little bit. Like, I don't think we're going to go all the way back to this.
Yeah.
But it is interesting seeing how the ebb and flow of like the industry with time and all that. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So she's like, that's not a terrible idea. So she calls a couple, and the only one that will work with her is a movie called The Crawling Eye. And so she goes to Pop's to get food, and then she spies Jughead on his tour of grief. And she goes to talk to him, and she asks if he's heard about the movie. He's like, yeah, but like, it doesn't really matter so much about the movie. You have to sell the experience. And so he talked about the tingler and like putting buzzers under the seats and stuff. And so she's like, oh, I can for sure do that. And so she does. And I thought Archie and Reggie not wanting to do it the second night was super bizarre.
No, that checked for me. Because she asked them and their balls to do her a favor.
So basically she's got like fog coming in, and then they're dressed up in eyeball costumes that come like out of the fog, like out of the screen, and like attack everybody. And everybody was having an amazing time.
It drove Fangs and Midge into
hysterical,
into passions.
Yeah,
like they were just like straight boning. They
just started hardcore making out in the front row of the movies. That's not where you make out. And so it was like a huge success. Everybody had a good time. It even turned Cheryl's mind. It was fantastic. So she loved that. And then the next night, it was like there was a line around the block of the WB backlot.
The whatever Vancouver warehouse.
Yeah.
Also where we get the term blockbuster.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
People lined around the block.
Yeah. So that basically was when Reggie and Archie were like, well, we can't do this every night. We have basketball practice at 7 p.m. apparently.
Well, they're in Beacon Hills now.
So, someone said the 7 p.m. show, and I'm just like, so you just like go home for 3 hours and then come back for basketball practice? That's not how high school works. Regardless, but the whole time also, since he arrived, I guess just last week, but Veronica has been like aggressively pursuing Reggie. And then in this episode, he asks her out like 4 times.
The second she browbeats him into finally relenting and being interested with her. And then in typical Veronica fashion, goes chasing a butterfly for the rest of
And so basically she like leaves him hanging too long because she's getting back in with all of the big studios for movies. And he like leaves the flowers, but he like does not stick around for a date with her. So I was like, I guess. And then she gets home, and this is psychotic. Psychotic behavior. So she gets home and her key is not working in the apartment door, and Smithers comes like from around the corner and is like, well, your parents basically think they don't need to financially support you anymore because you had one good night at the movie theater.
I also think that's because she can't get in.
Yeah.
Smithers then had to lurk outside of the apartment waiting for her to show up so that he could emerge from the shadows.
And he just was like, I'm to send you your things after you find
once you find a new place to stay, I'll send you all of your stuff.
Presumably at roughly midnight on a school night also, I would imagine.
Well, I was going to say she could go to the school because if I know one thing, it's that basketball practice is still going. So she also she was like, well, I have a place to stay. And I was like, Jughead's train car? No. Nobody else is moving into Jughead's train car after tonight's episode, even though 2 people could have done it. So she goes back to stay at the Babylonium, and she's actually like pretty pumped about it. She seems like she's excited. So it looked great. I was like, sure.
She's got a nice little chaise kind of fainting couchy kind of thing. So it seems great.
And her nightgown.
Her nightgown was dope. Yeah, so I'm actually excited for like what comes next with Veronica's story. That seems like it might be exciting. And then there's Betty.
And then there's Maud. It was so good.
It was so good. It was really, really, really good.
It's plot. Like it's not plot. Like it wasn't super plotty, but the whole episode, I'm sort of like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What was your first sexual memory, Betty? What? And just
playing
like
Operation with Archie
was so cute. I loved.
Also, I feel like the lines between like romance and sex are a little blurred because that I imagine she just wanted to kiss him. In that, are we considering just kissing sexual?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's a step in sexual development, but like, I would not think the first time I wanted to kiss a boy as my first sexual memory.
I mean, it's romance. I get it. I buy that. They are
more distinct in my mind, I guess.
Sure, but I guess I'm thinking you're going. Is it because you feel like that's too young, or?
I don't think that they looked like they were 8 or 9, maybe. I don't think 8 and 9-year-olds are thinking about having sex. I think she looked at Archie and was like, he's so cute. I want to kiss him. I mean, that doesn't immediately lead to sex.
Yeah.
Thoughts.
I remember, and I mean, it's different, I suppose. This could be a gender thing, but it's like, I mean, I remember being a kid and like taking baths with other kids, like another friend. And I remember being like, I like this. There's something happening. I'm not quite sure. I can't quite put my mermaid on it.
Sure, but
I enjoy being in this bathtub with him.
But you couldn't put like a name on it. And so in that sense, for me, it doesn't read as sexual.
But my point is, I would have answered that question that way.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. That's fair.
Maybe I'm the...
No, I mean,
I'm the pervert.
You're not a pervert. I mean, certainly no one in this room is as big a pervert as Dr. Werthers, who is asking all of these questions and taking pervy notes, just like Betty accuses him of, and reporting what should be confidential sessions to her mother.
So, yes, Alice was also in rare form this episode, which is noteworthy.
Yeah.
Because Alice is always in rare form.
We've been operating under this theory that like some of the people who were like involved in the like devil guy, like witch hunt stuff in last season are like somehow still metaphorically pulling strings in this like universe as well. And the only thing that's an issue with that is that like next week it looks like Sheriff Keller is like doing the right thing. So that's a little bit strange. And also, Hal has been dead forever. But my first thought in this episode, when Hal finally arrived in this episode, is, oh, he's brainwashing Alice. But, like, he was not involved because he's been dead for so long.
I don't have much to say about, because you're right. We were just sort of assuming that is the case, and it would not surprise me at all if that is not the case. I was going to go in a slightly different direction. I was going to go and say that I'm not going to defend Alice, but I'm going to contextualize. I think that I love Alice, and I think Alice deeply, deeply cares about Betty and her family. But I think she doesn't know how to go about it.
Well, certainly not in 1955.
I was going to say in general, but even especially the 50s. So for me, it's like all of these weird, gross, overstepping things she's doing with Betty checks perfectly for the 50s of it all.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I think that the disconnect is she can tell that there's something going on with Betty. She can tell that her daughter is a modern woman. And
or even just doesn't share the same sensibilities with her.
But it does make me wonder, and this is where I'm certain we're going too deep. Although, maybe we're 9 episodes into a really good season that is kind of pointing us this way. It makes me wonder if Alice, when she was a girl, when she was Betty's age, had a similar thing.
Almost definitely.
And chose convention.
Yeah.
And so she's trying everything in her power to steer Betty, because it's like I think she wants the best for Betty, but she doesn't know what that is.
Well, she thinks the best for Betty is what she did, and the best for Betty is to do what Betty wants to do.
Which, if you're just trying to get by, then sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I don't know. I got married and bought a house, but I didn't have kids.
Not well, and also you didn't do that because you were programmed to do that.
No.
You came to it of your own, on your own. Like. So
the thing is like, I think you're totally right about Alice as a character, but I also think that
because they have made Alice a villain before. Yeah. She has played an actual villain, and in my opinion, we've gotten close to that line, but she has not directly crossed into villain territory. Certainly not the way that like Penelope and Clifford.
No. I'm also not convinced that Hal still isn't brainwashing her, even if that other part, Hal is like for sure brainwashing her because she was almost considering it at the end there.
I want to know.
Yeah. Is he like magic? Because he just like appeared at the basement stairs.
He really portaled in there. And it's like, because it's the type of platitudes that could just be like there could be nothing under the surface. She could be like, I've sacrificed for you in the way that parents sacrifice for their children. But the way this scene was so deliberate, it felt like there was a secret about to be revealed.
Yeah, because also like, well, we both kept being like, sacrifice how? Like, footage not found. Like, how are you sacrificing? Because even if it's like, I married a gay man for you, it's like, sure, you did that before you had Betty. Like, so that's not even a sacrifice.
Did we say that in this talking that we've also been operating under the assumption that Hal...
I've been reading Hal as gay, and I'm with you. I think that Alice planted those girly magazines.
In his sock drawer? I was like, if anyone knows anything about anyone's sock drawer, it's Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
Like,
so
that is her domain. That is her jurisdiction, the sock drawers.
But basically, to fill in the back a little bit, Betty's been going to these therapy sessions with Dr. Werthers where he's asking her very invasive questions about her, why she's so interested in sex. Like, he thinks she's a nymphomaniac and exhibitionist, which...
Also, sorry, this episode in particular, the whole season, but this episode in particular was beautifully directed.
Oh, really pretty, yeah.
Like, there were directorial choices all over.
Pillai, yeah. Really good.
The close-ups.
He directed some Bridgerton. That'll do it.
It was sexy!
Yeah. Oh, and some Sabrina.
This was actually sexy in a way that, like, it's so, oh my God, like her dreams and that outfit they had her in when she was the teacher with Archie, with KJ Apa.
Yep.
And I just sort of love her being the aggressor or the dominant one.
Yeah.
I loved all of that stuff. And then you get like the real like jump scare of like cutting back to like a close up of like an extreme close up of Dr. Werthers.
Yeah.
Ugh. And
I just
go back to the point you were. Sorry.
Oh, he called her an exhibitionist, which also like that's just a thing. That's like a whole thing. Some people
that's like a person that
being watched
that gets off on the notion that you could be seen.
Yeah.
Her with intent putting on a show for a guy she's interested in that's not an exhibitionist. It's exhibition.
It is. It kind of is because it was getting her off. It was kind of getting Archie off too, and he's getting zero of this heat.
But I'm saying that was very intentional. Like, if she were just doing that for people, that's exhibitionism.
Okay, fine. If we're going by like
if we're calling
strict
someone
like kink club terms, then like fine. Regardless, he's going super overboard and all of this stuff. And like, as the episode goes, she comes to realize that he is ratting her out to Alice because a priest shows up at their house, or a reverend, but to do an exorcism.
Which, I mean, this is splitting hairs. Did she say reverend?
She did say reverend. Reverends can't do exorcism.
But she said something about like confession, and then she said something about exorcism, and I'm like, Catholicism is different. Yeah, that's not the same thing.
It's not exorcisms are not a waspy thing.
No.
So, she decides to break into Dr. Werther's office, and she like goes through the door that he has locked, looking for his notebook to see what he's been writing about her, and instead she finds a hidden copy of Lolita. And I threw up everywhere.
if you want to watch along with us, we have been doing watch-alongs this whole season on the Patreon, where you can join the $3 tier and watch along with us. We were largely just kind of watching. There was like face reactions and laughs and stuff. But we did have a couple of conversations about the book Lolita in the commercial break. So if you want to hear us talk about Lolita, it's there. So
she decides to, she goes to talk to Jughead first, too. She's like, have you heard of this? And he already is like, it's very salacious. Like, and the way he was talking about it made me think it was already banned, because it's been off and on banned since it was published.
That always works.
Unreal. So
Ron DeSantis can suck eggs.
Yeah. So he basically is like, like, it's very intense, like, about this older man who gets into a relationship with a young girl. And Betty says, how young? And he says, 12. And she says, so it's a book for perverts. And I'm just like, I get Betty's...
If we're just going to start telling the truth, no.
I get Betty's thing. It actually is like a beautifully written book. I kind of like the book Lolita, and I've seen both movie adaptations. And I think the thing that so many people don't understand is that it is written from the perspective of the man. So he is an unreliable narrator within the context of the story.
Which it's funny, because like the reason why we had those conversations is because I just assumed that the show was assuming that we all knew what was going on. But then the show did end up kind of, like Betty tells Dr. Werthers off, kind of explaining the book. Yeah. It was on par with what you were saying.
100%. And so basically
the Betty to Kristen parallel is it's kind of a 1-to-1 comparison.
If I could be a television character, it would be maybe Betty Cooper. So anyway, she reads the book, and then she reads Dr. Werthers for filth. And he is nervous, and he's gulping, and it was absolutely fantastic. Because he was like, I think you are like Lolita, and she was like, pardon? Because Lolita is like an oversexed girl or whatever, and she's like, no, she's being like gaslit essentially, and coerced and groomed into this relationship by a creepy older man. And, like, I think you're getting off on this. And it was just fantastic.
You know what it's giving me? It's giving me the Hunger Games with, like, President Snow trying to squash Katniss.
Oh, sure.
And it's like...
You're only making it worse.
Like Betty's gonna be... I didn't start this, but I am damn sure gonna finish it. Like, you know what I mean? I love that. And I think that's such a good... such a true, such a real statement, and such a good statement for young women, that it's like the world, culture, society spends so much time trying to tamp down and tamp out these flames, and they're just gonna ignite. You're just going to push them to.
And it's like so many people, like, forever are like, Lolita's a love story and all this, and it's like one of the greatest literary romances of all time, and I'm like, no, it's about a man who systemically coerces and rapes a 12-year-old girl for like 4 years. Like, that's not cool. Like, it's super horrible, but because we're seeing it through his eyes, he believes it is romantic, and that, I think, is what Nabokov did. That's like kind of impressive. Like, and he is not like condoning it.
I'm gonna have a nightmare getting this episode cleared for YouTube.
Did I say sorry? Whatever.
Continue.
So anyway, after she like reads him for filth, she goes home, and Alice is like on her case again about how like Dr. Werthers wants to cancel their sessions, but I'm not gonna let him or whatever. And it's just like,
just the most impotent sounding threats.
It's super, ridiculous. And so Betty is like, if you are that concerned about me, just talk to me. Like, I don't understand. It didn't used to be like this. Why won't you just talk to me? And she is like, they both are crying, like almost.
They're getting,
and they're almost there. And that's when Hal and his gay serial killer ass comes up.
and his balls.
And he just was like, you don't know anything about what your mother sacrificed. And I was like, neither do I.
But I would like to know. Like,
I would like to see it. And so then the next, and I also keep thinking that they're going to send Betty to the Sisters of Quiet Mercy. But the next morning, Alice is just like, I'm not your mom anymore. And I also thought she was gonna get kicked out, and I was like, go live in Jughead's train car. But no, I'm not your mom anymore, and you can make your own breakfast.
Everyone's gonna end up in Archie's room with Mary downstairs making
cut out the middleman,
making breakfast, making eggs.
I just kind of don't. That would be Betty's dream, because Reggie is still sleeping in there too.
I want to see it.
Threesome?
I want to see it.
You guys want to do a threesome? Yeah, I don't know. It was just great. Super great, because also, like,
I was just in. Like, it was very like
and Alice was very
it was popcorn.
Very even again the next morning. And so I'm just like, either Hal is brainwashing her or like drugging her, and he had like missed a dose yesterday.
We could go Stepford. That would be well within the territory of.
I don't know. I'm very interested to see what goes forward. Next week doesn't look like we're gonna move that needle very much farther, because it looks like it's Jughead and Sheriff Keller looking into the milkman. But yeah, I don't know. Great episode. I loved it. And Lily Reinhart is just
we've said it so much that I feel like it
stops making sense.
It goes without saying. Yeah, it's not, but the way that she's able to fill the screen with her presence, with her like thoughts. I've been waiting. We've been enjoying this so much that I've kind of in the back of my head, I'm going to be like, any day now, the bottom's going to fall out. And it's not happened yet. So.
I'm a little worried about that. I am, so far, based on the preview, I'm the least excited for next week's episode that I have been the whole season.
I know, I love Sheriff Keller.
But I do like Sheriff Keller. It's going to be a lot of Jughead. You don't like Jughead.
I like Jughead fine.
But yeah, mostly fantastic. I loved it.
So... Yeah. All right. Like and subscribe, leave a comment, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.